Hey guys, I'm Sage Valentine and I'm back here to review another episode of Fox's 24 Legacy. This time it's all about Season 1, Episode number 2, entitled From 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So let's just get down to it. Eric is running from the cops. He calls Rebecca, who's still at CTU, and tells her he lost Ben and Ben has the flash drive with the sleeper cell names and codes. And Ben will sell the codes if the government is unable to get him what he wants at the time he wants it. So Rebecca's in the room interrogating Keith, aka Zoom from the Flash, and she needs to know if she can trust Keith, because a situation happened and the Rangers that worked with Eric Carter, along with Eric Carter and Ben Grimes, had to get new names and new addresses when they returned to the United States, and only 3 people knew that, and one person was Keith Mullins. And Rebecca wants to know who accessed that information, and Keith is just like, it wasn't me, I didn't do this, I am not a double agent, blah, 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 but I don't believe him because he's Zoom. And Rebecca basically demands Keith's credentials and his access because she no longer has it at CTU because she stepped down as director. That's the impression that I get. So Keith ends up giving her the information that she wants. Now, Eric is running around searching for Ben Grimes, and he sees a dude wearing Ben Grimes' jacket, and he thought that was Ben, and it turns out not to be Ben, and the guy tells him Ben went that-a-way. And I thought that scene was really, really poignant because it was one vet talking to another vet, and it was just a beautiful scene. So Andy is online searching for the leak because they got to find out who this person is that leaked this information. Meanwhile, Eric realizes that Ben Grimes ran off and escaped down into a storm drain. The only thing is that there's like a million different ways to exit this storm drain. And pretty much they're just gonna have to wait until Ben surfaces, and Ben does surface, and he ends up calling Eric, and Eric puts him on 3-way with Rebecca and himself, but he just kind of leaves out the part about Rebecca being on the phone. Pretty much Ben tells Eric, I want my $2 million so that I can hand over this flash drive. If not, I'm selling it back to Ben Khalid's people. If you or the government is able to get this money, one of you has to show up at the 7th Street Metro station. Rebecca reveals when the phone call ends, like, listen, and as far as the ending part, it's mostly when Ben Grimes hangs up. Rebecca's like, I can't get that money at this time, but Eric's like, listen, I have an idea. So we cut to the scene with Isaac and Nicole, and Isaac reveals that it's been a rough year for his business, but he has a deal that he has to kind of sign for, and it's happening on this day, and it's with some Dominican individuals, and it's going to put his operation in the positive. So Eric calls Isaac and tries to ask him if he has $2 million, if he knows anybody who has that money, and Isaac's like, no, but I do know of a $4 million heroin bust that the police made. And the wheels start turning in Eric's head, and Isaac's like, no, this is not a good idea, dude. You cannot go into this precinct. No. But Eric has to do what he has to do because he's got to save the world. He's got to do what Jack Bauer always had to do, i.e. the title, 24 Legacy. Literally, Eric is living the legacy at this point. So Isaac makes a comment that Nicole was right, that Eric misses the action, and that's the only reason he's involved in this. Why does that sound like Jack Bauer and Jack's wife? Because it sure as hell sounds like it to me. Anyway, we cut to another scene of Ben Khalid's son Jad with this dude named Kasuma, and Kasuma is briefing Jad about the firefight that happened between the men and Eric Carter and Ben Grimes. And Jad's like, listen, Carter and Grimes need to be found ASAP. And Kasuma tells Jad that Jad's operation failed, thereby Jad failed. Mistake number 1. And Jad is just like, we are here to finish what my father started. And Kasuma kind of side-eyes him and is just like, dude, you were in college at Oxford while your father was doing what he did and was hiding in caves, etc., etc. But Jad kind of pshaws that away and is like, listen, I just want that list to launch the sleeper cell, so you need to find Carter and Grimes yesterday, pretty much. So Amira, the girl, the high school girl, who I believe is not a high school girl, I think that is a grown woman acting like a high school girl, taking advantage of the fact that she looks younger than she is. So she's talking to that dude, Drew. And she basically tells Drew that Mr. Harris, the teacher that Amira is working with, but Drew doesn't know this yet, he called her into his office and wanted to talk to her before he turned her into the principal. And Amira reveals she felt lonely after she and Drew broke up, and she was just saying stuff, and none of that stuff was real, and Drew falls for it hook, line, and sinker, and he apologizes to her, and they kiss. Then Amira calls up Mr. Harris and says, this fool fell for it. I need you to get on it. I need you to mix these explosives because we could be activated at any time and we must be ready to go. So Eric gets more information from Rebecca and Andy, despite the fact they feel some type of way about him going into that precinct as well because it is a dangerous situation. But they tell, Rebecca and Andy tell Eric that money is at the station, and they would feel more comfortable if Eric would allow them 20 or 30 or 45 minutes, one of the three, to get some information on a leak at the station. But Eric's like, no, I'm ready to go. All of this, the situation is my fault. I should have told on Ben Grimes. I should have benched him during the raid. He was talking crazy before all of this began. He was talking his conspiracy theories. But really, all of this is Ben Grimes' fault, to be honest. So Eric decides he's going to allow himself to get arrested, and it works like clockwork. It becomes this whole good cop, bad cop situation with the two cops. The older one is the bad cop. The younger one is the good cop. And Eric takes advantage of the situation, disarms the younger cop, and tells him to disarm the older cop, and tells them we're going for a ride. So Senator Donovan arrives at his event that Rebecca is missing, because Rebecca's supposed to be his lady. Well, she is his lady, but she's dealing with this mess with Eric. And we see that Gerald McCraney, the actor, is playing John Donovan's father. And he's worried about something. So Eric tells the cops, listen, I got to get into the police station. I have to get this money because I need to save the world, because if I don't do this, a whole bunch of people are going to die. And the racist cop doesn't believe Eric, but the younger cop does. And the racist one, I think, yes, the older cop. That's the one who's racist. Nicole is talking to Isaac. She wants to call up Eric and talk him out of this mission, but Isaac's like, no, don't do that. Eric's got to do what he's got to do. No matter what you say, he's still going to do it. So Isaac tells Nicole, listen, I'm on my way out. I'm leaving you with this one dude, my second in command, and my girlfriend Aisha. And basically, little does Isaac know that Aisha is out in the hallway and she hears his entire conversation. Particularly the part whereas he says that he's going to break up with Aisha once this deal with the Dominicans goes down. So Aisha talks to Isaac's second in command, and she seduces him and tells him, listen, I can help you get what is yours, meaning I could help you take out Isaac and then you'll be at the top and I'll be your main squeeze. But on a side note, this dude should not trust Aisha, because Aisha may take out Isaac and take out this dude, and then she may become number one. I mean, sky's the limit with Aisha at this point. So John Donovan's father, played by Gerald McCraney, reveals to him that there's an attack ad about to come out, and it involves John's campaign manager, Neela Mizrani, and it paints her as an anti-American and a terrorist. And they have photographic proof, but John's like, no, I don't believe this. She wouldn't do this. And his father tells him, listen, if we don't put a kibosh on this, you are not going to win, because this narrative paints you as a friend of the terrorists. Not a good look. So Ben Khalid's group, led by Kasuma, because Jad is like upstairs doing something. Kasuma is basically gathering up some of the guys because he chose a target for an attack, and he's just like, if we don't attack right now, we're not going to achieve anything. All of a sudden, Jad comes downstairs, and Kasuma makes mistake number 2 and basically points a gun at Jad, and Jad just walks right up to the gun and lets it touch his forehead. And at this point, I'm like, dude, anyone who allows a gun to touch your forehead, knowing you're going to die, and makes a statement like, only God knows when I'm going to go, that dude is crazy. Don't mess with him. I have this list of who is going to die in what order, and I believe Ben Grimes is at the top of that list, but I'm going to push Kasuma up there because Kasuma is making way too many mistakes, and Jad doesn't have good sense at all. So Mr. Harris is spazzing out. He's shaky. Amira starts kissing him, and then the next thing you know, she's down on her knees. I don't have to tell you what she's doing. You already know. Drew comes into the classroom. He sees it. He yells out, I'm going to tell. I'm like, Drew, you could have just ran off and just told somebody. Like, what are you doing? All of a sudden, him and Mr. Harris start fighting. The next thing you know, Drew hits his head once, and then Mr. Harris bashes Drew's head into the floor, and it looks like he's dead. Drew, I'm talking about, because his eyes are open and all this blood is coming out of the back of his head. So Eric and the cops make it to the station. Everything seems to be going fine, and we learn some information that the older racist cop is in trouble for using excessive force during a domestic dispute call. And the chief wants to talk to him, but the thing is that Eric is able to kind of resist arrest again, and then needless to say, the older cop and the younger cop are sent on their way to take Eric to a holding cell. Well, okay. Eric and the 2 cops head into the evidence locker. Now, mind you, Andy was blocking the cameras. Keep that in mind. He had done something to the system and was blocking those cameras so nobody could see Eric in the evidence locker. Okay, so Eric is inside. He secures both of the cops, and he starts looking for the money in the locker part of the evidence room. So John confronts Neela about the mosque situation, and Neela basically says that is not what happened. I only went to that mosque to tell that dude off because he was pushing, you know, this anti-American terrorism thing, and I wasn't here for it, and I wanted the people to know what this dude stood for. Needless to say, John is just like, well, I'm not going to let you resign because she said I want to resign. I'm sorry I caused all this problems, all this trouble. I should have told you, but I didn't. And John's like, no, I'm not going to let you resign. So Aisha calls one of the Dominican guys, a dude named Royo, and basically tells him to kill Isaac without actually saying it. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, by the way. So Andy has to stall this dude, Tom Locke, because he's entering CTU ready to be debriefed by Keith Mullins, who is in a holding room at the moment. And apparently he and Andy had a thing, and it seemed like Locke took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and then here comes Mariana, Edgar's niece. I'm just like, I'm not feeling this Mariana character at all. She's so shady. She tells Locke that she feels like there's something fishy going on. All of a sudden, we see Eric calling Ben Grimes, and Ben Grimes is being a pain in the butt because Eric's like, listen, I got your money, but it's going to be a minute before I can make it and meet up with you. And Ben is like, if you don't get here, I'm calling Ben Khalid's people. And I'm at this point in the episode where I'm like, just do it, dude. If you're gonna do it, then just do it. I know, because if he calls him, then he's gonna give them the flash drive with the sleeper cell and the codes and everything. But I'm just like, dude, just do it, because you have become an even bigger pain in the butt than you already were in the first episode. But anyway, the leak in the system used Rebecca's CTU director's code, and that person was revealed to be Neela Mizrani, the campaign manager for John Donovan. So all of a sudden, Andy and Rebecca are shut out of the system. Everything goes dark, and poor Eric has to find a way out of the evidence locker, because as he is leaving, the guns start firing at him because there's cops outside. Because once Rebecca and Andy got kicked out of the system, that's when the cops were able to see what Eric was doing. Alrighty, so I'm a lady of my word. I promised to review episode 2 and recap it, and that's what I did. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I have a review for 24 Legacy episode 4 coming soon, Emerald City, and The Walking Dead. So I love you all. Take care. Bye, guys. Bye.